Maybe I can go back, my last question before we maybe take a few questions from the audience, but going back to the question of the public cloud and in particular, since we're in France, on the Andromeda project, we all like to maybe understand, since you are the victim on that particular topic, we all like to understand a bit more what is the not the architecture and the overall idea, but the underlying hypothesis of building that cloud. We understand that in a time of dire crisis in France, especially financial crisis, the government is earmarking a large amount of money to build cloud computing infrastructure. Or is it a data center, or a collection of data center, or is it a platform, or is it some code, or is it some services? Some of which would be used for government applications, and we understood that most of them are to be related to the patriotic effort that we all need to do in those difficult times that we're traversing. And some others are going to be, generally offered to the public, companies and market and individuals, maybe in the same way. Under the under the label of private cloud. Could you maybe comment on maybe the role of open architecture and open processes in that effort, which seems which is paradoxical in the current difficult economic times that we're going through, and then which seems to be a bit unique, and then I can go back maybe looking at other countries around the world, and maybe we can go back on this because I have another follow-up question on security in the age of cloud computing. Which
the starting point for that is really to boost the national economy on the digital market. So and recognizing also that cloud computing has a real impact on the digital economy, and the European community and the French government doesn't want every workload to go into the US or whatever, or being run by foreign companies. To comment on Jean-Pierre, and the gross margin of Amazon are impressive. Confirmed by some other players saying that it's easy to make a 40% gross margin on public cloud with the Amazon price point. So it's not 95%. So the thing is, we believe there will be a price war in the future. Currently, everybody's happy to sell at the price of Amazon, and everybody's making some money, but there will be a price war. So this is why we feel also that we need to design from ground up a dedicated, specific organization which thinks low cost, which thinks public cloud, open source, and so on. Meaning also that we think we have to invest a lot in fixed costs to get control of the open source, because
when you say we, it's government, it's Orange,
it's the Andromeda,
it's the Andromeda stakeholders.
Yeah, we have this question. This is something we don't believe we can do in the existing organization of Orange, because you have to have a different mindset. You have to be very lean and so on. So it's easier, and it's not a surprise, but it's easier to create a separate structure than to try to change the existing organization and then to make the link between both. So yeah, by the way, it will still be a private company, meaning that it's not being. The French state will still do some RFPs, and Andromeda will compete with others. So it's not a reserved market for this company or the French government. And so it's a low cost. The first thing, it's really being low cost and being able to compete, being able to bring some raw material for an ecosystem of new companies and new startups to build on top of that, and for some specific usage and defense and so on to add some specific security, and being able to audit the code which is running for the defense sector, for instance.
Okay, then a quick follow-up, and then maybe we can hear your comment. A follow-up question on the security issue. Since maybe one of the objectives of that particular effort is to run those government-specific applications that are related to, let's say, the defense, we all read about the new threats in terms of security of data or security of network that come with cloud computing. If you have access to somewhat limited, or at least very high resources for computation, you can now adapt attacks against security of networks or security layers or security schemes that were not feasible before. And you've all read this summer how, codes that were supposed to be secure for at least a number of years were broken simply by adding virtual machines on top of Amazon EC2 until, the brute force algorithm would actually break those codes. Do you have any comment on this and explain why it does, or maybe it doesn't, but why it does matter in the overall thinking of this government initiative?
Yeah, but it's a threat that comes from cloud computing by itself, and to mention also GPUs, which are heavily used for cracking passwords. Not
to mention the Chinese supercomputing record established with. I just mentioned it because it's interesting because cloud computing. We always think about distributed architectures of CPUs, but cloud computing at large is just the idea of a huge, massive parallelization of resources. That can apply to both GPUs, peripherals, and even files, data, objects in different shapes and forms. So there is a very interesting angle here, is that not only do we have new services that didn't exist before that are made possible, like Hadoop and the NoSQL databases, but we may have new animals, hardware architecture animals that we don't know very much about today that are made all of a sudden possible. And those animals may have very, very different capabilities than the one we are used to. So that's why I'm asking the question about
the good old recipes of isolation, of network isolation, still apply. Something we do for companies, which we call a VPN gallery, is creating a hub for SaaS providers. Microsoft is one of them, for enterprises also, and so that we can guarantee from the site location of a customer to the SaaS provider that it's 100% secured VPN access. There is not a single wire going through the internet, and this is important for quality of service and prevention from downtime. You can always have just a story. I don't remember which company it was. The communication department just sent to every employee a link to a YouTube video. Good idea. The problem is at the same time, all the employees went to YouTube through the internet access. And the bad news is that during that time, the access to their critical business application on SaaS was down because of a bottleneck on the internet access. So this is the kind of thing that it's even not a security issue. It's not an attack issue.
It's almost a service level agreement in terms of the use of resources.
So having a dedicated, secured, guaranteed access to your SaaS providers is an important thing.
At an appropriate price, of course.
At a very low price.
Okay.
Just a very simple thing on security. Security relies on 3 pillars. Technology, that's what we've been talking about. Processes, that's exactly the example you made. The problem was not the security, it was the process. And human beings. And the weakest part of those 3 is the third one. And the hackers, and the people that really want to steal information, they've been knowing that for tens, if not more than that, of years. So you need to take care of those 3 things, and you have lots of examples in the recent years of companies, IT companies that were delivering services that had that kind of problems, including with their employees. So and I don't want to. No, say anything because it can happen in any company, in absolutely any company. Yeah. But you should take care about those 3 things at the same time.
But this is a vulnerability which is even worse, I should say, in the cloud computing context.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, it's worse in a sense, but it's bigger. So it's a bigger target for, let's say, facetious coders or things like that. So. The game is funnier, and hackers like
especially
that.
If you have a public, nationwide, government-owned cloud computing, it's fun.
That's it.
It's much cooler than.
Exactly, it would be really sexier than a little system. So that's one part.
It's good on your resume too.
And so that's why I think we're not finished with security issues and isolations and stuff like that. In any case, a VM is vulnerable. Is a piece of software, piece of gruyere. So we have issues there, and VPNs are not enough. And so I would, and it brings back to SLA, to QS, and things like that, and to the cost. People are ready to pay. So today, people are paying for best effort in security, best effort in QoS and things like that. They don't know really what they get and things like that. But I would like to get back to the war of price that has been described quite clearly. There is a new player also that will change the game, the cloud broker. The cloud broker will do the brokerage between different offers. Architectures, cloud providers, and things like that. And it can rely on same kind of thing. The contract can be based on SLA. I want the best quality, security, and things like that. And so the broker will deal with the most appropriate cloud provider. On the other, if it's only on cost, the broker will also have to find the less expensive offer on the market at this time, because it might change. So we will live some very interesting days in the future, where we'll see this market will be governed by economics. I mean, it might be more interesting to buy some power at night or during the day, or in some part of the globe instead. So, plus you will have something quite interesting. We spoke about the role of the users, but the user can score his provider. Okay, so you can have this, for instance, this community of cloud we spoke about, with a community of users scoring the different providers they had and the quality they had. In that case, SLAs or things like that coming from the provider are less and less important. So I think it will be interesting to have this mix of, let's say, social network stuff and cloud computing, and the fact that people will become more and more agile with those technologies.
And I see you are a fan of market capitalism, which is fine.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Maybe before we can take a few questions, maybe you want to extend.
Just on the question of security, I think it's always very important to remember that there is three kinds of data. There's a kind that is public, which you will happily put on a public cloud. There is a kind that is relatively needs some relative security, that you will put in a public cloud but encrypted. And there is a kind which you really care about, which is really, really important for you, which you will never put in a public cloud. And this is why we need private clouds that can interoperate perfectly with public clouds when they need to do some data exchanges. The security, again, is not a state, it's a process. You will always have bigger swords and bigger shields. Just watch out for it.
Okay. Well, thank you.